In this video, I will be going over how to add Prismacolor pencils to your final drawing. So for this project, we know we're adding 3 different materials. I have not started on my drawing yet, but you might have started adding other supplies, and that's okay. We can flip back and forth between different supplies throughout this whole project. So I want to talk about the materials that I have set up and the supplies that you'll need. So I have my final drawing paper out. I have some sketch paper, which you can see I've done some color testing on. I also sometimes write down the colors that I'm using for a space so that I remember exactly which colors are in certain areas. And I have my value scales that I did. I also have some practice value scales that I'm going to be looking at. So you can use whatever materials or worksheets that you have that might help you. You can also always do these practices smaller on any sheet of paper or on the back of a piece of paper. You can always attempt value or color mixing in a very small space to get some practice in before you apply it to your final drawing. I also have a selection of my Prismacolor pencils picked out from my art kit. I know kind of what colors I want to start using, and it's really important that you also have your colorless blender out. This is what just looks like a wood pencil, but on the edge it says colorless blender. And in my video that I covered for colored pencil on our value scale worksheet, I talked about how to layer colored pencils. You have to do a lot of layers back and forth, and then your kind of final layering is with this colorless blender, which is our wax pencil. So please make sure you're using this because we cannot use other supplies to blend our colored pencils. So for example, in my art kit, which I have handy, because you might need some other supplies that are in here, for example, your pencil sharpener or an eraser, you cannot use your blending stump for colored pencils. It will stain your blending stump and you will no longer be able to use it for ebony pencil. So please make sure you're using supplies that are meant to be paired together to be successful. And again, that's just with this project. So you might have a colorless or a blending stump at home that you want to use with different supplies, and that's fine, but we don't want to lose that opportunity for this unit. My requirements are going to be to show value, something that goes dark to light, and color mixing, which I have a few different examples of color mixing either with 2 colors, or this one's, I think, 4 to 5 colors, I believe. So we need to show value and color mixing with this material. That's what I'm going to be looking for when I grade. Now that doesn't mean you have to show value and color mixing in each spot that you put these supplies, but in some areas that's what you need to do. And when you're adding colored pencils, you can choose wherever you want to add colored pencils here. You can choose to add a little bit of colored pencils or a lot, as long as you're showing it in your work. Remember to re-watch the video where I did the value scales. It's in our formative work folder for this unit to get reminders on how to really layer up your colored pencil and be successful with that step. The directions are to watch this video, and you can follow along with me as you work if you'd like, or you can just watch and then get started on your own. So my goal for adding colored pencils is I'm really being loose with color with this project. I am not using the exact color of the animal skull that I'm drawing. I am using a very different color scheme. So what I'm planning on doing is using warm colors. So I really liked how this value scale turned out. And I'm going to use warm colors inside the skull, and then I might use cool colors in like this background space by the eye sockets, and then I might use ebony pencil in the background. So I'm kind of thinking about where things are going, what colors I'm choosing and why, so you can have free choice with your color selection. So I've decided to start this color scheme going from my darker value to lighter. So again, I'm using this as a reference. I can practice things on my scrap piece of paper first, kind of test colors, practice mixing, and I am ready to go. So I'm gonna start that process here on this skull. So I wanna make sure that all my pencil lines are erased here. And as I start to fill in this space, you get to decide if you're taking your color pencil into another area or if your materials are going to stop and start here. So I'm just going to be working on this spot. When something overlaps with another skull, I'm going to see what I want to do with that later. So when you're using your colored pencils, it's a great idea to keep your colored pencils nice and sharp as you work. And then that way, in most spaces, or if you're doing value or color mixing, you can use the side of your colored pencil. And this is going to take quite a bit of time, but what I'm starting to do is show value here. I want the darkest value to be up at the top. It's going to go dark to light and fade out. Then I'm going to bring my orange color in, dark to light, so it'll go further down. And then I'll bring my yellow in, dark to light, lighter yellow, dark to light, and then the white over the edge to fill that in, and that's what I practiced here. So in this space, I just started with like a plain rectangle. Now I'm being challenged to move my value in a very different shape. For my project, I'm going to go right over some of my Sharpie lines. You might decide not to do that at all. And I'm changing the direction of my pencil, but in a very specific way so that my craftsmanship still looks nice. It still looks like my pencil is going in one direction up here. So I want to think about craftsmanship. My goal right now is to have smooth value transitions. That's my style that I usually work with. That's what I'm going to go for here. Now, some of you might want to incorporate cross-hatching that we practiced a few weeks ago. You might want to incorporate stippling. But that's really going to be up to you because those are not required. But what is required from you is value and color mixing. So again, I could fill in spaces that are just flat color, like this processed red. I could do a flat color space here, but somewhere in my artwork with the Prismacolor pencils, I need to show value. And then somewhere in my artwork with the Prismacolor pencils, I need to show color mixing. I love color mixing. I think it's a really great way to show value in a more interesting way. I think it's nice to kind of change a color from its packaging so that, you know, your work is just that much more unique. If you can tell here, I'm going over these spaces over and over and over again. I never rely on the first time a material goes over a space to be the last time that it's going to touch that area. I'm going to go over and over and over this until I like it. Then if I need to add more of this color to this space later, I can always come back over and add more. But I want to start with a really good base of value. So it's going to get super, super light down here so that my colors, as they go from one to the next, they're really going to blend together. So value is dark to light, and color mixing you can show with value or just by layering two colors on top of each other, or more than two colors, depending on what you're trying to show. So what I want you to consider with craftsmanship as well is where spaces are getting filled in. So I'm trying my best to stay in the lines here, but one thing that's nice about colored pencils is that I have this really light mark here. Colored pencils erase a little bit. But if I try and erase, see, this area, it still like has a pink hue to it, but I can erase that pretty well. So luckily, if I keep my pencil light at first, I can actually make some changes to that space if I need to. But once it gets pushed darker, it's not going to erase completely. So we want to make sure we're using an eraser when we can, but trying to stay inside the lines as much as possible. I have a different example where I actually did color pencil in the wrong space. For example, if I did color pencil here and I wasn't supposed to, I had to try my best to erase that space fully. And I couldn't erase it all the way. But what I plan to do is I plan on doing oil pastels over the top, picking a darker oil pastel color to cover up that space. So if we make mistakes, we want to think about how we can problem solve that as an artist. Are we going to try and let it be so it kind of fades into the background? Maybe people won't notice it. Or will we try to do something with what we have and make that work? So again, I would spend a lot more time here before bringing in my next color. And I'm going to do color pencil here and here. And then I'm gonna stop and reevaluate and ask myself where else I wanna do color pencil, if I wanna change up the colors that I'm mixing, maybe do them a little bit different each time, but that'll be my choice. So those are a few reminders that I have for you with colored pencils. Remember to meet the requirements, to try your best, and to use your value scales and scrap paper whenever you are doing something new or need to try out a color. One last reminder that I have for you as I'm trying to layer up my second color here. I'm trying to fill this spacing with nice craftsmanship. Is that if you already have other materials added, for example, my hand might be going over the top of ebony pencil and smearing that. So what you could do is if you have a piece of blank paper, set that over the top so that your hand doesn't interact with that other space. Good luck. I will have time-lapse videos added to this space of my continued work and my continued progress. Please feel free to check those out as you are working. Take your time, try your best, and we're trying to learn new things. Enjoy.